All right, welcome. VOTech Simplified. And so today I'm doing a general purpose session where we're talking primarily about anything you want to talk about. So let me get the messaging up so I make sure that I see. If you ask a question, I will see it and I can respond to it. So today you get to ask anything you want. I'm going to talk a little bit about interfaces because I have one that I'm super happy about that I've been using a while, and to blow away the myth, there's a bunch of interfaces out there that are $500 plus, and unless you're working music or a bunch of live things, it just doesn't make any sense to me. One, sound quality is not getting higher. Um, you're not going to get something once you get over about $200 to $300. You do get into a range where they're adding features, but they're adding features that very often are not helpful for our use case, and therefore they don't make you sound better. Your voiceover is not going to sound better if it's recorded on a $800 interface versus it's recorded on assuming you have a good DAW. Now, some of it is if someone's using Audacity and then the actual effects that are available on some of the very higher end DAWs, higher end interfaces, those are going to be superior. And I'm adjusting some things on my screen here. I'm not looking at you. So the thing that happens with that is that um, the quality of the tools that are in the DAWs have gotten so strong over the last couple of years that things that in the old days were very helpful coming off the interfaces, they were better quality tools. That's shifted over the last year or so, a couple of years especially, where now the software tools that are available in the better DAWs are just as strong or stronger in terms of what's available than what's happening on the interfaces. So yeah, so we can talk about that if you want. And of course, I'm a big fan. I'm gonna put this on my screen here. Let's see, we can look at this here. So when I'm doing all this kind of thing where we're talking over Zoom, or we're talking over, this is under OBS, but I'm broadcasting and I have loopback and I have all the stuff. This is my interface that I'm using these days, and it has a complete software interface on it as well, so that rather than change the knobs on the actual interface itself, I just don't do that anymore. Anything I need to do to adjust in terms of my speaker volume, headphone volume, volume going out to different channels, having things where I can take my tools that I'm using and have them go out to the broadcast, have them to go out Zoom. All that's happening here, and I don't have to go ahead and the nice thing about it is what I don't have to do is I don't have to touch my interface anymore. And I just absolutely am convinced that this is the future of all DAW, of all interfaces over time, that when you can have the ability to manage 100% of their features from turning on 48 volts and dealing with gain and their overall setup, when you can do it absolutely from the interface as far as on the computer, and that way the interface can be far away and I can have a short USB cable to the interface and a long mic cable, and that's the ultimate setup, and this is where everything's going over time. So it's not where everything's at right now, but everything's going to this ability to adjust and be able to manage it. And then I think it's also going to go more and more so that this little gain knob here, this is what's coming off of my mic. This one, when I look at one of my panels here, I actually have that exact same gain knob right within my DAW. So if I wanted to turn up my mic, turn down my mic, and handle most of the things, I can manage the 48 volts on and off right from here if I choose to, and they're linked together. And so there's going to be additional DAW integration over time of the interface, being able to control it externally and that kind of thing. So it just makes things easier. I don't have to touch. My interface does not have to be within reach anymore, and yours doesn't need to either. So I'm using this Quantum ES2, fantastic DAW, a fantastic interface, amazing, very well done, and maybe 2.25 if I remember, maybe 230. It's under 250. It's crazy how good it is for 250 bucks. It's absolutely nuts. So the quality of what's going on with the interfaces continues to get better and better and better and better. Okay. So I don't know, I don't want to say shocked, but I am impressed with what's happening now in the space that's under $300, because I look at the capabilities of what was available 3-4 years ago, and nothing. I mean, it's just a different world, but that's happening, and they're getting into these ridiculous numbers now where if you really choose to, you have absolutely crazy specs that are beyond what gets utilized in the voiceover world by far, and you just kind of get into numbers. It'd be the same as if my car. My car, I think the speedometer goes up to, I think it's 160, 170. I've never been close to that. Okay. And I don't expect to be close to that. Um, but what the car manufacturers seem to do is they put a speedometer on, and it shows more capacity than, I think there's a governor on mine, and maybe 140, 150. I don't really know. I've never been up that high. Um, I won't talk about what I did once when I was a younger guy in my 30s with a brand new car that I had. But there's governors on these things where now you could put a dial that goes to 300 miles an hour if you want it on a car, and it might look like, wow, this car will go that fast. But I live in LA. I will admit that you could get away with going 80 these days. That's not a problem. And I'll bet somebody going between Los Angeles and Vegas, there's a stretch out there that I've seen people blow by me when I'm going 75, 80, and just blow by me. So I don't know if they're running 90. So yeah, but to have a car that could go 150 or 170, there's just no difference between being able to go 125 and 170. There's other factors in there that are more important. So don't get hung up in yeah, this can do 192, the sample rates at 192. It's 192, 196. Well, I think it's 192. That just doesn't bias anything. And so much of our work, unfortunately, in the end, ends up being MP3. Hopefully someday we'll get away from that format, but that hasn't happened yet. So software interfaces are the future, that are for all the interfaces in my mind. There's a couple of them that don't allow. There's a couple of them that are kind of expensive that don't even allow firmware updates. When you combine that one, okay, let me bring this over this other panel. So it has two control panels. One of them that has all the basic setup, so block size, and so yes, this thing can go up to 192, but that's just kind of crazy. I wonder if I can zoom in on that. Let me see if I can zoom in. Oh, I can. This is not going to make if this would make my voice sound better, by the way, I would do it all day long. It would make huge files. It doesn't end up with better voiceover. It's not even better to go up here to 96 and that kind of thing. They've done so many blind tests on this stuff. You get into these vanity specs, but it would be like my car saying that it could go 2.25, even though it's the same car, but it makes it look like it could go faster. It's just not helpful to do that. Okay. So don't get hung up on these specs. Now, I do like having some of the chips that are more advanced that can go a little higher. It's nice if they can go up to 96. That's a really good range. If the chips can handle that are in your interface, that's a good thing. But not because we would ever use it. It's just like, I mean, I really don't want a car that could go 90 as its top end, even though I don't plan on going 90. I'd like it to have enough extra capacity to not need it, and that works fine. It tends to work well because now I can run the engine at a easier range, a range that's less stress on all the parts if it's built and designed so it can handle going 125. Then when I go 75, then it's going to do fine. So that's really the whole point of this stuff. There has been a war, a spec war, and what I predict is, well, even my DAW now. My DAW can export to WAV files that are 64-bit WAV files. Okay. Now, what that really is it's just PreSonus going. I wonder. Let's see if I show that. If this one, I don't know if I have it set up to do that. I know it can. I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can do that. WAV file 16-bit. Yeah, 64-bit float. So there's a wave format. Up until about a year ago, I don't know, a couple years ago, 32-bit float was the max that anything was doing, and now this one can do 64-bit float. 64-bit float is just ridiculous in terms of what we need for exporting and doing anything that's going to make any difference in terms of sound. Even 24-bit for voiceover, it's not only overkill, it has a dynamic range that is so far beyond anything that anybody is going to need for voiceover. The actual functional usable range is about 30 dB is the max you could ever get out of a voice, and there's some reasons we could talk about that if everyone cares. Yeah, it goes to 11, Larry. That's right on. That's right on. Matter of fact, let me see if I don't know if any of these ones that I have. I gotta check this one. That's a great one because this interface, if I look at the other one here, I don't think it will show me. That's sitting over here. That's sitting right under here. It's underneath me. I do have an interface. Is this one? No. I have one that's sitting downstairs. I should have brought it up here. And they do have like their headphones go to 11, and they do that kind of thing where they marked them, and that was strictly because somebody was a smart aleck in management and let it go through. That they marked a couple of their headphone knobs that go to 11, which is really you'd have to watch Wayne's World and some of these things, other things. You know, you can only the max is the max. You could label it anything you want. You could have done it 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 11. But going to 11 is not better than going to 10, right? So yeah, that's a great reference, Larry. It is amazing that that they got away with it. I was surprised. Usually, companies are they don't have a sense of humor. Somebody might have a sense of humor when they're building it, but when they're out there in the real world, they go, "Yeah, that's funny, that's humorous, but we're not going to do that." And I always get a kick out of seeing a few companies that actually live by that. So, if you guys have any questions about DAWs, about recording, about RX, I'm happy to answer them. And if we don't get a whole bunch of them, then I'm not gonna, because today I just decided let's see what happens. If anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, I know, yeah, I know. Like I've got a discussion going on with Larry, who happens to be here, about the multi clicker, and I have to get back with you on that. I saw you responded to me, and I haven't been back to that yet, but I will. Okay, so software interfaces for all your interfaces. What will happen over the next couple of years is USB mics will become a very common connection and can do a great job. Those days are coming along because you can see Rode has a good mic that works pretty well on USB. Personas has one that works over USB. It's getting there. We got another year or so. The next generation of mics won't shock me. Sennheiser actually had one, and they discontinued it because it kind of, from a marketing point of view, it became an issue for them just because people didn't believe that USB could be as good as XLR. The reality is those days are on the way, and they're really here right now. The tech is available right now, but there's a marketing problem and a perception problem. And there still will be cheap USBs, but it'll no longer be that USB absolutely means it's cheap. It means it could be, but it also, I mean, literally, Sennheiser had one going off of one of their mics, and in blind testing, people could not tell the difference. But they just decided, and this was about 3 years ago or so, they had one. 2 years ago, I can't remember the exact date on it, but I guarantee you they'll go back to it as soon as it's that was from the movie Spinal Tap. Great, I couldn't remember which movie that was. Sorry, had the wrong movie. You're right. Thank you, John. See, you get to my age, you can't remember which movie what was from. So thank you for that. But point being, USB mics are coming in. Interfaces keep getting better and better. They get to specs that are beyond what we can use for voiceover. And even if you're the only case you have for some of these really high-end interfaces, musicians are constantly looking for a different sound off of their instrument. They record one song, they want their next song to sound different. And they want similar to what they had before, but they want minor variations. Most of us doing voiceover, I don't want my voice to sound different on today's recording and the recording tomorrow. You want your voice to sound how you want it, and if you want to act with a different voice, that's cool. But to have the mic change to something different later doesn't make any sense, and we don't need or nor use nor take good advantage of it, simply because the tools that are in the DAWs right now are just getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's crazy how good they are. And it's across more than one DAW. Studio One's amazing, but there are some others, and there are third-party products right now that are just kicking butt and doing things that used to only be available in hardware. So now you can get an interface. It's one of the things that it's the least important once you get past a certain point. Now there's a couple interfaces out there that are like $50 or so, and those are not all that good. Still, now that could change, but as of this point right now, I know of no interface that's under $75 that I would ever use for professional use. Kids can use them, and there's some other things there. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. Okay. So anything else that somebody wants to talk about? Hardware, software, interfaces, things about home recording. If somebody has something fantastic, and if they don't, then heck, in a few minutes we'll stop this thing. But if you guys, I see two of you there who are chatting with me. Anything that you guys want to talk about, let's go for it. The DAWs are getting stronger. It's amazing what's going on in the DAW world. I'm always following what's happening there, and they're all revving. They're all continuing to put out new versions. As you know, new versions can cause new problems. One of the products put out an update here and changed their limiter and their compressor and they broke backward compatibility. So you do have to be careful. If you're going to upgrade in the middle of a project, be sure there's a way back. And the good programs, I mean, Studio One, just as an example, and Studio One and RX both have this great thing. I have on my machine, you can even see me down here. I have on my machine RX10, RX9, RX8, RX7, 6, 5, 4, and 3. Those are still on my machine. I can open up all those ones, and and sometimes I can't run them. The RX is pretty interesting, and I can run them all at the same time. I could open up RX9 and RX11 at the same time. I've done that before. I can have RX10 open at the same time as I have RX11. On the PC, Studio One allows me, and some programs do this, some don't. But I have RX Studio One 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 on my machine. I can open them up. I just have to close one, and I can open the next one. I cannot have all of them open at once, but I can have any of those versions open. And some software allows you to have them all on your machine, and then you can open each of them. You can close one and open the other. And you can check things. Oh, there's RX11. That one should be right over there. That belongs right there. Okay, so now I've got, when I started this, RX3 was all the rage. Okay, we were excited about the tools in RX3, if you can believe that. Well, if you've started in the last 5 years, you don't realize what we had to deal with back in the day and how little the tools were, and yet how much time and they saved us, and the quality that we were able to eke out of them if you use them well. So all those are sitting there on this machine. And then these I can toggle and open one and see the previous versions and the previous generations. And you know what? Behind the scenes, I predict RX12 is being worked on. All right. Now, I have no insider information on that directly. And I guarantee you that Studio One version 7 is being worked on, simply because all these companies in parallel with whatever they're doing, Audacity, whatever version they're on, 3 point something, 3.6, I want to say, they're working on the next one. And then as they come out, some of these companies are great. I can install and maintain multiple copies of version 6 even on my machine and switch between them easily if I ever needed to. The path back on the good software, if something goes wrong, is very easy. The path back on some of the software is a little less clear. That's part of one of those things that nobody cares about until something goes wrong, and then they care about it a lot. Is there more DSP features coming to the Quantum? I think so. I think what they're going to do is leave that to the DAWs. That's my guess. Okay. The other thing I'm lobbying them for, what I'm lobbying for them to do, is instead put in a VST interface so that it could run VSTs on here, and it could run them on the computer via this software. That's what I would like to see them do. The reason is, like, if someone owns Studio One, then they could run. There's all the tools in Studio One could be running here, if you wanted those. But if you're going into one of the DAWs directly, then it doesn't matter. Okay, they're all set up and run not only their internal native tools but also run VSTs. But there are all the tools that are in Studio One, for example, you can get to where they are available to run in other products, non-PreSonus products. Like you can run the Studio One, you can run, which one would it be? Pro EQ would be an example. You could run this EQ, which is a killer EQ that it has some dynamic controls, and it's very extensive. It's pretty crazy because the musicians need all sorts of stuff. You could run this in Reaper if you chose to, if you have a Studio One license. Now you have to have the ability. They don't just, so if you own this and you had someone else that had Reaper and they wanted to run this, and if they have both products, they can run these tools in Reaper. What I'm lobbying them to do is to be able to run VSTs within this interface rather than have DSP. Or I guess they could put all the Studio One stuff in here, but they have figured out over time, people really mess that up. The number one tech call I get on the interfaces that allow all that custom processing, people turn it on and turn it off, and they really mess up their stuff. It is amazing what people do with that stuff. So I don't know if that'll come. I'm hoping they get VST in here. But the great thing is they have the foundation that if they decide to do that, they can do that, because that's all software based and that could all run on your computer, and that would be a great thing. If they want to run it direct off the interface, I'm not for that, because what that means is they have to put in a dedicated chip to run all that, and those chips then, when things upgrade, I think they're much better off running them off the CPU. The CPUs on the modern computers have so much power to burn. The new Macs, M1s, M2s, M3s are just phenomenal, and they have a lot of excess power there, and that's where I'd like to see that go, is to be able to run all the VSTs or the native processing all on the computer side. So it would look like the same thing as coming off the interface. It would effectively be the same thing before it gets to the DAW, but it's all really running in software here. So that's where I hope they go. I have no inside information on that. I don't. I have connections that I can get to the team that does this, but yeah, it's not something I don't talk to them very often. Okay, because I don't. So far, I just personally, I don't care. I don't see enough value in that. And if I really wanted to be running all this stuff, since I have the loop back feature, I could run it through this and output it, and yeah, be running it through something. I could add some reverb or something if I really wanted that, but in most cases I don't want that. I'm going to record it, and if I need some reverb, I'll add it there. Okay, so I hope that asks. Yeah, VSTs would be great. Yes, there are updates coming to the jump starts. I'm working on those, but those probably about 2 months away, and there'll be some upgrades to those. Okay, I got some good stuff happening there. So that's John's question there. VSTs would be great. Yes, yes, yes. And there are updates coming to the Jumpstart. Yeah, got some cool stuff going on there. All right. So anybody else have any questions about it? I don't see any. I'll give you the last 30 seconds here. And today we'll call it a day. And next week I'll be back with a topic instead of general. I just thought I'd try, hey, what happens if I just do a general thing? Is there enough people with enough questions? And Larry and John, if you have anything, be sure to ask it. Happy to answer that, of course, for you guys. And then if somebody else wants to jump in there with your question, then be sure to do it. And if you don't, then that's cool too. That just means you didn't have anything specific for this week. But what you should be doing is writing down your questions, sending things to me if you have things you want to go over. I'm always happy to do that. Always looking for good topics, things that will apply to a lot of people is really where we're going on that. Okay? So I don't see any other questions coming in. So what I will assume Is there nothing else there? And if you have something that would be helpful for everybody, you have questions, then you please let me know on that one. A lot of good stuff happening here in the software world. I'm really impressed with what's going on. These guys are not sitting around. I guarantee you that these guys are working on their next generation, and these guys are working on their next generation, and so are everybody else. Every once in a while, someone will come to me, "Oh, I'm so impressed that this company just updated, whatever. This DAW just updated something." They're all updating something. Now, some companies are better at it than others. Some companies are doing it faster than others. And some people, hey, what they put out is, more helpful to us or less helpful to us. Just depends on what they're doing, the size of their dev team, the size of their team that can do the quality control so that once they get it out there, do they have problems with the 98%, 99%? Some just do it a whole lot better than others. All right. So you guys have a fantastic day. I see you. Thank you. So I'm going to call it a day for now. If you have something, you let me know. And of course, I'll see you next week on the wires. You have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.